Wolves 2, Chelsea 6. Hello there, guys. Daniel Childs back here again for quite an incredible reaction and breakdown of the game yesterday. I wasn't able to fully watch the game. Of course, I saw what was going on. I saw the goals. I saw the highlights and have gone back and watched the game. I was actually at Wembley for AEW All In. So quite an incredible Sunday, really, to see Chelsea do what they did and then watch quite a great AEW show. So it was a good Sunday. It was one of the best ones I've had in some time. And really going to be breaking it down here, looking at some of the reasons why I think Chelsea was so effective in that second half, and maybe a sign of what should be coming under Enzo Maresca, because this really was a big day, I think, in terms of Chelsea looking so confident, also responding to adversity. When we look at that first half, it was quite chaotic. Wolves could have scored more than two. They did score two, and at half time, really, it was anyone's game. And given the way the game had played out and some of the things I'd seen Wolves exploit in Chelsea's defence, I was quite concerned. But the way the team responded in the second half, the conviction, the aggressiveness off the ball especially, we're going to get into that, and the way Noni Madueke kind of just turned up and went, I'm going to make a name for myself here. I'm going to become one of Chelsea's most important players. I think that was really wonderful to see. And, in the end, it was a stroll for Chelsea and a really headline statement win. When, to be honest, 3 points was good enough, but the way they won, the conviction of it was so impressive. So looking at the starting 11, it was kind of a blend of what we've seen so far this season. Obviously, only 2 games, a really, really small sample size. Of course, the big concern is about Romeo Lavia. No Romeo Lavia in the squad. It's believed he suffered some sort of hamstring issue that Maresca said pre-game wasn't that huge a concern, but given this is a guy who hasn't played a lot of football, it's like a lot of Chelsea players who missed a lot of last season. The fact they're already picking up small injuries is not great. So we kind of had Caicedo, Enzo as kind of the two central midfielders. The way it got put up by FootMob, and I'm sure other people, was it looked more like a 4-1-4-1, but I think really at times it looked more like a 4-2-3-1. As Enzo kind of playing this quarterback slash kind of 8, not really a 10, which I think worked out wonderfully for Chelsea and was the right move, because Fernandes should not be playing as a number 10. It's a complete waste of time. And I have real frustration when I see players being misprofiled in any area of the pitch, and especially when you can just put Cole Palmer in that role. And of course, he's going to help Chelsea win games more often than not. So we saw Cole Palmer, we saw Noni Madueke getting to play on the right-hand side after his goal against Servette, and Mykhailo Mudryk starting the back four of Cucurella, Colwill, Fofana and Gusto, Robert Sanchez in goal, and Nicolas Jackson starting the game. Now, brilliant start. Nicolas Jackson scoring his first goal of the season. That's wonderful for him from a set piece. But there wasn't... Again, we'll get to the second goal, which I think sort of foreshadowed what was going to happen in the second half for Chelsea. That was wonderful and I think was really informative. But there was a lot of problems in that first half structurally from Chelsea's point of view. I still have major concerns about us inverting our fullback, especially the right back. I'm still not entirely sure what it's giving to our game. There was one moment in the first half, and this wasn't really to do with inverting the fullback. It was just kind of a classic Leicester Maresca move that Chelsea did that nearly led to a Noni goal that I thought was really encouraging. Like, this is kind of the style of play that he wants to implement. And it was in the first half, building up from deep. Sanchez kind of almost moving as a second centre-back with Colwill. The ball gets played inside Caicedo. Caicedo passes it back, a nice triangle with Levi Colwill. Cucurella gets the ball in a natural kind of left-back position. He finds Enzo Fernandez. Wolves have pressed. There's space for Enzo on this left side to run into. And then Enzo really nice checks back, avoids the challenge, keeps the ball, and curls the ball to Noni Madueke, who is then one-on-one on the right-hand side. I mean, this kind of felt like a classic Leicester move. And of course, Noni was able to get a shot away. It kind of felt like, to me, this is kind of the style of football, or the type of move at its best that Maresca is looking to produce. When it does produce it in this sense, you can understand why it can be quite effective, especially when Noni is playing the way he has been, especially yesterday. But unfortunately, that there was too little of that and too much of the stuff we've seen so far this season, where Chelsea are being carved open in midfield very easily. Enzo got a lot better off the ball, and I'm going to give him a lot of praise in the second half of this. But, in that first half, it felt like Caicedo was kind of in there on his own. He was being overwhelmed by Wolves, and especially the way the first Wolves goal came about. It felt to me like a classic case of we've moved our natural fullback into a central role. He hasn't got back in time, and there's this massive gap opening up, and that's why Matheus Cunha was able to finish. I think Sanchez should be doing better with that goal. Seemed like he was kind of diving out of the way of the shot, and it was far too easy, and it was far too easy for Wolves to score again. I know obviously this comes after the Palmer goal, because I want to talk about the Palmer goal and what it led to in the second half, but just defensively, two kind of untested challenges inside the box. Even if the foul itself that leads to the free kick felt a little bit poor and weak and wasn't great officiating, you've still got to defend it properly, because you're sitting on a 2-1 lead. If you walk into half-time 2-1, brilliant, after what has been a chaotic first half. And of course they hit the bar as well, and just defensively, Fofana and Caldwell didn't look that comfortable. I think, you always have to look at when a team is being opened up and exploited on a number of occasions. I always look at central midfield. Is there enough support? Is there an anchor there? Is there enough protection of the ball? How are Chelsea being transitioned on? So I feel like in that first half, Chelsea just looked really imbalanced, and they didn't seem to be able to keep the ball enough. And some of the things that I'd seen against Man City throughout pre-season and Servette were kind of creeping up, and I was thinking this could go in a bad way for Chelsea if this continues. But then, of course, the goal just before half-time from Cole Palmer, I think, showcased Chelsea's ability to start playing more direct and more transitional football. And this is the interesting thing, because, of course, Maresca was kind of sold as this coach that was going to come in and play this kind of very rigid possession, slow build-up. And it's not that you can't play that, but of course, if we factor in what happened last season, and some of the best traits under Mauricio Pochettino was this kind of much more rapid, much more chaotic at times, yes, but effective transition ball, where Chelsea were not really that interested in keeping the ball inside their own half and waiting for someone to press them. It was harrying off the ball. It was looking for those transition moments when you can get a team kind of uncoordinated and really hit them, when you've got players like Palmer, when you've got the speed of Madueke, and especially when you've now got the speed of Neto, the speed of Jackson. It looks so much more intense. And I thought, obviously, Robert Sanchez, who I've given a lot of criticism to, a brilliant piece of thinking from him, quick thinking to play the ball to Jackson. Jackson then puts it in the path of Palmer. He sees Sarr outside and off his line, and it's a wonderful chip. I mean, he still has to execute it brilliantly, and it's a classic Cole Palmer brilliant moment. But that kind of foreshadowed to me what then happened in the second half, when Chelsea was so much more intense, so much more direct, so much more hungry and aggressive off the ball. I think also taking off Mykhailo Mudryk. I think we could make a separate video about Mykhailo Mudryk. I had no idea why he was starting this game and what exactly Maresca was thinking by starting this game. Because when you saw what Neto provided in the second half, I mean, it's just laughable that even happened. But, maybe Maresca has learned his lesson now, and for whatever reason, Mudryk is not good enough to be starting for Chelsea, and I think this is more evidence of it, and kind of the post-match comments from Maresca, I think, said as much. So if Maresca says all of that like he did post Servette, and we still see Mudryk starting against Servette, I'd be quite amazed, really, because this was a real standout 45 minutes. And I think part of it was, of course, Wolves, for me, looking really disorganised. They had a real lack of cover on the left side of their defence, a bit like Chelsea in the first half on our right side. And of course, Madueke ate that up and took the opportunities. But I just thought off the ball, we were a lot more structured. I think our pressing off the ball was a lot better. And you sort of saw this pack of kind of four players, usually Neto, Jackson, Palmer and Enzo, really hounding the ball. And what you don't want is Enzo Fernandez being the first presser, because he isn't that good of a presser. But really, I thought how compact Chelsea were. They were closing down those spaces and really forcing Wolves into a lot of errors. I thought for the fourth Chelsea goal, it was such a great example of pressing effectively, forcing a team to kind of play the ball long into an area where you have more superiority. And Chelsea just, I'll stress this again, there were kind of basics that Chelsea were just doing a lot better. We don't have to get all complex about it. Chelsea off the ball were a lot more aggressive. They were a lot more alert. They played more as a team. They were able to condense and limit the space and passing options for Wolves. And off the ball, just aggressively, in terms of physical challenges, the defence was stepping up. They were winning those physical battles more than they were in the first half. again, I think sometimes we can overcomplicate football. These are things that, of course, make you a more effective football team, and of course meant that Chelsea were able to get the ball quickly into their centre forwards and to their most dangerous players like Cole Palmer on a consistent basis. And this is what I love to see, because takes a couple of headers, Caicedo plays it into the feet of Palmer. This is exactly where you want Cole Palmer picking the ball on the turn. You have the opposing defence really struggling. Structurally, you can see the problem here for Wolves. They had basically no left back in this position, and it was quite easy for Chelsea to double up and get that overload. But Madueke's finishing and decision making in this game, that has been criticised before, was wonderful. He took every opportunity basically that was presented to him. But I also just thought Enzo Fernandez off the ball in the second half was a lot better, a lot more effective, and also was popping up in those areas that you want Enzo, because he's never going to be a defensive midfielder. He isn't a number 10. He kind of is a mix for me between kind of a deep lying playmaker and a number 8, someone who again kind of operates in that middle area. And I thought his positioning in the second half was just perfect, because it allowed him to be aggressive, win challenges, which, you can talk about his physicality maybe not being the best off the ball, but he won a lot of challenges. He was quite an effective player for Chelsea, of winning the ball back, of keeping that intensity up, and just spotting the right moment where Chelsea could, ramp up intensity, play a few passes. What I liked about the second half, it felt like Chelsea were doing what teams have been doing to them so far this season, where it only takes a couple of passes to open up the pitch, and Chelsea realised that, and a lot of that came from Enzo Fernandez from deep. Plays the ball intelligently to Nicolas Jackson. Jackson, I thought, had a really effective game too. Opens up his body. He plays in Cole Palmer. This pass actually didn't lead to a goal. It was one where Palmer went on his own rather than finding Madueke, and he hits the post. But another great example of Chelsea playing fast, just no-nonsense football. And this is the sort of football I think that's going to resonate with Chelsea fans a lot more, and just looks more effective when you do have the tools at your disposal that can play in this manner. So another great example of this is the one for the fifth goal, and just a great example of how compact, how intense Chelsea's press is. They're covering a lot of space here in a short area, a lot of players, a lot of blue shirts, and just anticipating the right moment to go into press to win the ball. And once again, Enzo Fernandez key to this, and it eventually leads, of course, to Cole Palmer, as he had been doing throughout the game, laying the ball after Noni Madueke, and that's the fifth goal. I spoke about Pedro Neto's ability in transition, not just because of his speed, but also his decision making. And I think the sixth goal was just a great example of his decision making being really good. So intense, again, similar type of move that we've seen throughout the half. Ball gets played forward. Palmer again involved as you expect him to be. Neto flying down the left wing at Molineux like he used to for Wolves, and he just cuts the ball back brilliantly here, because he could go for the far post where Noni is, but instead he clearly spots where Joao Felix is, and Joao Felix with one of his first touches back at Chelsea. Exquisite finish from him, and that's number 6. So credit to Joao Felix. Let's hope he continues doing that when he gets into those sort of areas. But I think a great example there of how Neto can be used. And again, this style of football is impactful. It's energetic. It's not about slowly, intricately passing the ball. And I'm not saying that you're going to get this space all the time. I think it was a chaotic game, and it just was kind of that game. And Chelsea grabbed onto that and made that a benefit to them in the second half, rather than it being a limitation and then being swamped by that chaos. I think you had two teams who maybe didn't quite look as structured, but it shows you that the tools at the disposal for Enzo Maresca are there to play this style of football and to play it very impactfully and to get results, right? Because Enzo Maresca, for whatever he wants Chelsea to be in the future, and for whatever work he's doing at Cobham, he needs buy-in, he needs results, he needs to be able to put things on the board that get all of us convinced this is going in a positive direction. And part of that, I think, is kind of working with what he has. And what he has are some very talented transitional players. So I don't know why we can't lean on that a bit more. I'm not saying that Chelsea every single week have to play on the counter-attack. Not entirely. There are going to be games where just naturally a team are going to be so weak compared to Chelsea, they're going to give Chelsea the ball, and then it's on Chelsea to break them down. But even in the Servette game, when we quickened up our play, it's just kind of basic things. When we quickened up our passing, when we looked for a ball over the top of someone, because we got the speed in attack to hurt a lot of defences, it just, I go back to that kind of inverted fullback. Is it actually having a tangible sign of helping Chelsea, or is it just a stylistic thing that Enzo Maresca wants? I personally, so far, I'm not seeing the benefit of it. What I am seeing the benefit of is, say, playing Enzo Fernandez in a better position, getting Cole Palmer into positions where he can be freer, Noni Madueke really taking the opportunity and running into space and, really helping Chelsea be a lot more impactful in a shorter period of time. Because this style of play, if it does take a long period of time, do Chelsea have the time to do that? Do they have the resources to do that? Do they have the patience to do that? I'm not entirely sure. What they do have, based on last season, also just based on kind of the history of Chelsea, is being a very good transitional team. And when you buy players like Pedro Neto, when you've got players like Noni Madueke, when you've got players like Nicolas Jackson, when you've got Enzo Fernandez as a midfielder who can play passes from a deeper area that unlock defences, that gets you further up the pitch quicker, the tools are kind of all there. So to me, I'm very curious to see what happens now moving forward, because to me this felt like a very big 45 minutes, probably over that, for Enzo Maresca. I think it showed him, and whether, again, if this was part of the plan, then fair play to Enzo Maresca. If he spotted this and this was something at half-time that they worked on, wonderful, because I think it shows that already it's showing that maybe he does have an ability to adapt to his environment, which I think he needs to. And it was a defining half of football for Chelsea, and it was lovely to see. The fans, of course, loved it. We've got to give some credit to Louis Benavente for showing up, because finally Chelsea winning at Molineux for the first time in years. And ironically, the last time we won at Molineux, of course, was a similar scoreline. I think it was 5-2, wasn't it, under Frank? So we love scoring big when we do win there, and hopefully for the players, it's a massive boost of confidence for them. It kind of reminds me of almost like a film that ends brilliantly, that starts kind of shoddily, but you forget about the shoddy beginning of that movie because it ends so well. That's what makes it a good film, and what leaves you feeling so good when you do exit that film. And I think it was the same for Chelsea here. There was some shoddy, chaotic, concerning moments early in the game, but the way Chelsea dominated in that second half, how can you not be happy watching that style of football? And for Noni Madueke, his best day in a Chelsea shirt, hopefully ends any talk of him leaving. We'll see what happens for the closing days of the window. But really for Chelsea, obviously for Joao Felix obviously coming back, for Jackson getting off the account, for Palmer having such an influential day, for Enzo Fernandez, who's had a difficult summer, playing so well. All round, this was a really, really big day for Chelsea, and I really do hope it can be the start of building something in the early weeks of the season to get everyone around the club feeling more positive. So those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below, and I'll see you again very soon. All the best.